Sup everyone, it's the Stick Figure Historian, and we're coming to you today with another episode in the story of Texas. And, you guys will have to excuse me if I sound a little funny today, 'cause I've got a cold. Again. But it's not gonna stop me from making videos. So here we go. It was February 11th, 1836, and James C. Neill was packing his bags to leave the Alamo. The Mexican army couldn't have driven him from that fort. Not even his own government could have done it. No, it was something stronger, a higher duty, that called him away from his post. His family had all come down with a serious illness, and he was leaving to care for them. Since William Travis was the highest ranking officer in the fort, Neill appointed him to be in command while he was gone. But the Texans didn't like Neill's stand-in. They didn't want some young Johnny-come-lately to order them about just because the government called him an officer. They wanted someone like themselves, someone with experience that understood their independent ways. James Bowie fit the bill. The Texans elected him as their leader instead. Bowie threw a party to celebrate his new command, which, for him, meant getting very drunk. Travis looked on in disgust and envy. Travis decided that the Alamo just wasn't big enough for the two of them. Conflict erupted between his original 30 men and the rest of the Texans, not to mention between himself and Bowie. It got so bad that someone actually sent for help to Neill, who had to turn around and come put things to rights. He arranged for Bowie and Travis to share command of the men, and relative peace was restored to the little mission fort. For now. Neill was finally able to go and take care of his family. 11 days later, on February 21st, Santa Anna stood on the bank of the Medina River. He was 25 miles away from Bexar. It had been a long road to get here. A terrible cold snap had swept through the northern reaches of Mexico, throwing wind, snow, and death into the teeth of the Mexican Army of Operations. The soldiers had been forced to march great distances, many of them underclothed and underfed. Scores had dropped along the way from hypothermia, exhaustion, and disease. It was in some ways similar to Napoleon's great, but failed, winter march into Russia. But this wasn't Russia, and Santa Anna knew that there were brighter and warmer days ahead. He did not turn around, as the French Emperor had. And his perseverance, and the terrible sufferings of his army, had finally brought him within reach of his object. As for the Texans, they were busy joining in a great fiesta being held within the city of Bexar. They danced, ate, and drank the time away, as danger lurked nearer and nearer to their fort. Santa Anna's scouts couldn't believe their eyes. They went back and told the commander about the party. The dictator proclaimed that they would join in the festivities that very night, and began to move for an immediate attack. But the dark storm clouds that had been forming up on the skyline grew suddenly larger, and before the Mexican Army of Operations could get into motion, a cold winter rain was coming down in torrents. The fiesta went on uninterrupted. 2 days later, the spirit of festivities seemed to have evaporated. Suddenly, many of the citizens of Bexar flew frantically about, packing up everything they could carry and hurrying out of the city. When Travis sent to ask them what was the matter, they told him that they were afraid that the Mexican army was coming. The young commander was not sure what to think of this. Surely Santa Anna wouldn't be marching at this time of year. Perhaps the citizens had heard a rumor and let their imaginations run away with themselves. But, on the other hand, what if they knew something that he didn't? He sent a man to the San Fernando church tower, one of the highest points in Bexar, to stand as a lookout. In almost no time at all, a telltale cloud of dust appeared on the horizon. A large group of men approaching. A very large group. The alarm was sounded throughout the city, and men began to scramble about like ants that had just had their homes staved in. Now, had Travis and Bowie been more vigilant and made proper preparations ahead of time, it wouldn't have been such a panic. But as it stood, the city was very much not ready to withstand attack. Travis decided to pull everyone into the Alamo. But there wasn't even enough food there. A few head of cattle were driven protestingly into the courtyard, and the soldiers rummaged frantically through the abandoned houses to see what they could find. Many of the garrison members were scattered throughout the city and had to be tracked down and called to action. It was a wild scramble, but everyone was safely inside the fort by the time the Mexicans reached the city. Slowly, the columns of soldiers weaved their way through the buildings, marching in careful time and order, before finally halting a short distance before the Alamo walls. Travis and the Texans watched with bated breath. Clearly, by the size of it, this was the main army of Mexico, and that meant Santa Anna was at their head. Would he fire upon the walls? Or would he send a summons for surrender first? They watched the enemy camp, but no cannon was fired. No shout was raised. No rider sent to meet them. Only a flagpole was lifted, with a scrap of cloth hanging raggedly from its end. A sudden gust of wind took the folds of the cloth and spread it to the full, furling free against the sky. A solid blood-red flag. No prisoners. If the fort fell, not a man within could expect to live. Well, we know how Travis once responded when Juan Bradburn had threatened to shoot him those years ago back in Anahuac. His response here was little different. He loaded the largest cannon of the Alamo and fired it towards the Mexican camp in defiance. He didn't care what happened to him or his men. He would hold the fort or die like a man. Bowie, however, didn't quite share Travis's sentiments. He was quite a bit older, and experience had tempered his fiery nature to some extent. There was a chance that Santa Anna would be willing to work out terms, but he was afraid that Travis had blown all of that by rashly firing off the cannon. He hastily sent a messenger out to try and treat with the Mexicans.